feminism and Ahmadinejad's work for women are praised. Their fabulous education, and even the Ayatollah. The Ayatollah is portrayed as a moderate. Okay, let's get this straight. The Ayatollah killed thousands of people in one day. I think the count's roughly 4,000, depending on who you believe, for not being Muslim enough. Enough, okay? There's no mention to it, and in fact, and with this I'll wrap up because I could go all night and we're going to be out of time. But in fact, and we need the seizing of the U.S. Embassy and the what happened in Iran in the late 70s is described as a model to laborers and women and farm workers about what can be done in the future to bring change. And it's said that it was very popular because the U.S. Embassy existed as the epicenter of all conspiracies harming the Iranian people. And when we stand up and we go, I've got a problem with this.
It's in our textbook.
And the pitiful thing is, I mean, and I'm going to skip because this goes on, and I literally have thousands of pages of going, holy crud. I photocopy it, I scan it. I'm like, oh, this is, if it's so great, if this whole thing is so great, why don't they let this stuff come home? Why aren't we allowed to be in the classroom anymore? And why do they lie to us?
Julie, you want to show this here?
Okay.
My daughter is really good at being a spy for me with her little camera. She'll take pictures of all this stuff. And she brought this home one day. It was in the Bible, and it says, this material is copyrighted and therefore must be securely destroyed immediately after use. Do not provide a copy of this material to anyone, teacher, student, or otherwise, who is not directly involved with this test administration.
Yeah, you're not
destroyed.
And by the way, on that, on that, thank you. Thank you. On that, I am pushing for some legislation. Who is your rep here?
State Senator Martin. I don't know who the rep is here.
Okay, all right.
Marsha Blackburn is
No.
the Fed
She's
rep.
the U.S., but I'm just thinking locally. I'm pushing for some of our guys in this next session. The Parental and Educator Privacy and Access Act. And basically what it would say is any content that our children are exposed to must be returned home to the parents within 40 days of submission. I picked 40 days because that's how long they have to respond to a FERPA or FOIA request that you fill out to see your own children's work.
Which has been revised. We should mention that FERPA, which
Yes.
stands for, Family Education Rights and Privacy Act.
Yeah.
That is a mandate from the federal government that says that nobody has access to anything that your children brings into the school as far as information goes.
Right.
This, the administration thugs went in and revised FERPA.
Got it.
So that they can't, well, that's a better word, gutted FERPA so that the data is accessible not to the parents, but to the corporations, and we're hearing about the selling, to the corporations who actually work within the school system for trade and profit. And a lot of, you were talking about human capital, this is the first paper that my husband actually, I'll just give you a quick rundown. I didn't want to speak, but I'll just say, I'm Lana Hines. I have 2 boys, 2nd and 4th grade. I have my oldest child who is special needs. He is an autistic child. And that's a whole other realm of study under Common Core because it's really scary. But when he entered 3rd grade, when our oldest son Liam entered 3rd grade, it's the 2nd year that this school has been opened in Williamson County. And we went in for parent orientation night. And the teacher was talking about things and telling everybody about what to expect for the year. And our principal walked in and kind of took over the conversation and she said, we're all so excited about a new program that is being introduced into our school called the Common Core. And basically it means if you move from one state to the next, where you're coming from, you're going to be learning the same thing here that you learned from someplace else. And of course, the parents in the room think that's wonderful. But my husband and I mean, I don't know, maybe we do wear tinfoil hats every once in a while, but we looked at each other and we thought, I don't know if I like that, because it just seemed a little strange. So my husband took that to heart and studied. And what he came up with one day, I'll never forget it, he came into the living room as I was folding clothes or something, and he waved this. He said, you're not gonna believe this. This is what, this paper and this paper. This is by the Pioneer Institute, and it's the very first thing that spurred us all into action. It's a free download online from the Pioneer Institute. And Glenn McGordy and Jane Robbins wrote it. But it's a full analysis. They were on Glenn Beck, and they talked about this very paper, but it's a full analysis of what the Common Core really means. This paper is from the Council of Chief State School Officers and the Chief. These are the people that wrote it. These are the people that, and say, I don't know if we talked about this, our former governor and our present governor are on the board.
And we ended
It's
up with
in
more
our
money
state,
than
and you wanted
anybody
to know
else.
how it, you wanted to know how it came into our state. They were on the board, it's copyrighted material, and there are only 2 people that have degrees that are credible that wrote the Common Core. There are a lot of people that have rejected it that helped write it. It's substandard. The math stuff was tested on Russian prodigies in the 1950s. And the Russians said, this doesn't work, we can't have it anymore. And they dismissed it and worked it out of their system. It's the same system we're using on our kids today.
Mhm.
But
Who was it
And
that wrote
in
the council
fact-
of who?
this is the Council of Chief State School Officers. Council of Chiefs, it's called the
Pioneer what?
CCSSO.
Institute.
The Pioneer Institute. But here's the part that I wanted to read to you. And they're gonna give you all kinds of facts and figures in this page, and y'all can look at this. They're gonna give you all kinds of facts and figures about global testing and global placement of our children as Americans in the global system, right? They don't tell you who does the testing. And all the testing that's done, like the PISA and the OCED, they're all bound together into one community. And they don't go outside that circle. It's a lot like Pearson with our textbooks, right? So in
Well,
here,
and Pearson is a big component of the standardized testing.
and here's a lot of the other stuff. These are all government documents. I've got pages and pages of stuff right here. This is global, this is electronic analysis and global and data mining. This is the Gritton tenacity paper where you can see the pictures of the devices that will eventually be in your kids' schools. From the iris, the retinal scanners.
And by the way, with all those laptops and iPads and everything they're giving away, it's important to know where they've been used in the past.
Well, it's important to also know who owns the copyright on those.
Yes.
It's a division.
Your family doesn't have them.
No, it's a division of Bill Gates. Bill Gates started a small company called InBloom specifically because of Common Core. And they supply all of the technology to the schools. So he's not only helping to promote Common Core, but he's making money
And
on the
actually,
side.
here's something interesting. Bill Gates and the Libyan Investment Authority are the 2 largest shareholders in Pearson Publishing.
There's something else interesting to know about Mr. Gates, is that he is so adamant and so excited about what computers can do to change the world, that he is manufacturing, and they anticipate over the next 2 to 3 years, they'll be available in all the stores for you to start using these toys that also have a computer chip inside it with your babies in your cribs and whatnot, to start retinal display, recording pulse rate, respiration, all those kinds of things, what stimuli, attracts them, what they're repelled by, and it goes into your child's own data chip that you keep and then you can take to school with them as they progress through these series of toys, so that the school has a better understanding about who and what your child is all about.
And I'm sorry, if this
Let's
isn't,
talk to the kids.
They refer
kids.
to your children in this book. They refer to your children in this book many times as human capital. Many times.
Wow.
They're highlighted and you can see for yourself.
When
My
we got the
child is
Constitution
a
out law.
child and he's not human capital. And the only person in history that I know that referred to the youth as human capital was Mao Zedong.
Yes. Mao Zedong, because they actually figured we're willing to lose this many on this effort.
Right.
We're willing to lose this many on this effort.
These are here if you want
And-
to look at them.
And as to something else that she brought up, whether or not you realize it, children in schools today are being assigned a point value, okay? Which is a pretty sick way to talk about children. For example, a friend of mine, well, let's say, I don't want to do anything too specific, I wouldn't want to out anyone, but let's say third grade teacher. You should have a point value of between 14 and 17 points. She's not a teacher that I want to keep because she's one who says, hey, I've got a problem with this, I've got a problem with this. So they only gave her 22 students, which makes it look like she's got a very small class size, but 9 of them are special needs. 3 of them are completely nonverbal. 4 are not potty trained.
Third grade?
Third
Yes.
grade.
Yeah.
There are no teaching assistants anymore, and, you know, that when they eat non-foods, like there are children in the classroom who literally are not capable, not through any fault of their own, they are physiologically not capable of picking up a pen and holding it, and they're supposed to take the exact same test as everyone else. Here's something else, and with this we'll go to questions. The other thing that is sick and twisted, and it's across Davidson County, it's popping up in Rutherford County. If it's not here yet, it will be soon. Data boards. You guys have the data boards?
My husband does in Kentucky.
So for those of you who don't know, data boards. You've got front of the classroom. By the way, this also, I had a juvenile court judge tell me, completely illegal. But because you're not supposed to bring your kid to the classroom when you have a meeting, and you're not really allowed access to the classroom when just spontaneously they have an opportunity to sanitize the room before you get there. But what the data board does is the data board, in this particular instance, lists the children on the bulletin board at the front of the room, not alphabetically, but by class rank. So everyone in the class knows who the smartest kid is and who the dumbest kid is. And then across the top, like this, so their names go here, across the top, it'll have all of their little subjects, okay? And for, if you're ahead of where core says you need to be, you get a green sticker. If you're on track, you get a blue sticker. If you're in danger of falling behind, oh no, you get a yellow sticker. If you're failing, you get a red sticker. Now there is one kid who, and I'm sure it's repeated in classrooms across America, but one child I know of sits in that classroom and points at that board and cries all day, every day, because he cannot tell you his name. But he knows that green stickers are smart stickers and red stickers are dumb stickers, and no one ever lets him have anything but a red sticker. And if we're not willing to say that that is an indecent way to treat a child, but here's the thing, I'm sorry, Hitler Youth, because if you couldn't keep up, you were left behind and the culture didn't need you, and that's what we're doing again.
Read that.
Oh yeah. Again, government paper. With prevalence of new digital learning resources and learning technology, new form of measurements are emerging, making it possible to go beyond conventional approaches. For example, data mining techniques can track students' trajectories of persistence in learning over time, thereby providing actionable feedback to students and teachers.
Okay, can I stop you there?
Yes.
Can you read that sentence again, please?
Okay. For example, data mining techniques can track students' trajectories of persistent.
That's it. Data mining techniques can track a student's trajectory. What does that mean? It means they're predicting your child's outcome. It's predictive testing, so they can place them in a line of study, in a column where their choices are eliminated and their ability to think for themselves is minimized.
And actually, you also have the RFID chips and things that they talk about with that. That's not mark of the beast out of the
Is
list.
that in there too?
So, actually, that's already been an issue in Texas. That you have the fMRI tracking. But
And this was another piece of information that Denise's daughter was able to get
Wow.
hold of. But it talks about you have
the man's coming to get her.
Yeah. A big book about all these things that you like, and you rank them according to your desire. Do you like it a lot? You don't like it at all? It's something you might want to do. And then when you do your inventory over here, it will actually break it down into what you're going to become. You might be some kind of an engineer, which really is just a janitor, but they've got a nice little name for it. It's absolutely unbelievable. 6 categories with different strata within
And on that, let me tell you that we had, because we're talking about junior high students, especially guys, they were given, I talked to a mother recently where the kids were going, they got one of those. And the one, at least one kid, but if they're like my son, I'm sure it was half the class, was going, and what's your highest goal when you grow up? Garbage collector, ditch digger, just like putting down I want to make a career in knitting, I want to, whatever goofball thing they could choose, they checked. Next week, career fair. Guidance counselor comes in, brings them back their little scores, and tells them, well, you can only go and visit the booths of those where your outcomes indicate that, to the government testing, indicate that you will be potentially successful in these careers. So the one kid was going, don't want to be a bus driver, want to be a lawyer. No, you don't get to decide because the government's giving you these tests and it says you're going to be good at this. And the fact that it's like, one last story real quick that sums it up, and I'm so sorry, but there's so much.
We gotta be out in about 10 minutes.
Okay, Zhao. There's a great guy to look up, his name is Zhao, Z-H-A-O, or L-A, one or the other. And he actually, the great thing that's about his writing is he objects to Common Core because he was raised in China. And he says Common Core is it's Chinese communist education, that's all it is. So his thing that happened in his village before he was able to emigrate to America is that he said in his village for hundreds of years, girls would learn to sew and boys would learn to handle water buffalo. And the government had determined that those were the only skills they would ever need, so that's all you were ever allowed to learn. Boys learned how to handle water buffalo. Then something tragic happened in the 80s. China opened up to the West, and all of a sudden they needed all of these laborers in the city, and there were jobs to be had, but none of the guys in his village could do any of those jobs because there wasn't any call for herding water buffalo. And there was nothing for them to do, and he said, and I was a little guy, so I was never good at herding water buffalo in the first place. And the idea that the government can tell you, or your children, what skills you are going to need to solve problems that don't even exist yet is absurd unless they're loading their panels with prophets and psychics. Yes.
Can I ask 2 questions?
Yes.
One, do you think this whole Common Core thing is going to lead to a lot more homeschooling?
I think it already has, and private education, but that's not safe enough.
And 2, I also have a special needs child, and he's not in kindergarten yet. How is all of this going to be for him?
She is your woman to speak to because truthfully, special needs children, what happened, it's traumatic and it's immoral. And
Because can I tell you guys something if you don't know already? If you're a parent and you go up against a school district, they like to retaliate by calling CPS on you.
have you had that happen?
I have not, but somebody I know has.
Yes.
We need to exchange information.
Or they think, but I'm one of those parents who I could totally see it happening to. because I'm not a silent parent. In fact, I've caught them being out of compliance twice, and he only started school in March in the special
call them
needs
on the
preschool,
content?
and they've been out of compliance twice, and there's a summer break in between them.
Mm-hmm.
And they funded, I had to fight for his adaptive swing, and they funded it incorrectly, but I'm not gonna say anything about that. But the Office of Civil Liberties told me that the PTO funded it and they shouldn't have, which I already knew, but.
I'll just say this. The special needs program, the IEP program is being phased out. In 5 years, your special needs child will be ushered into the classroom and be expected to either swim or drown.
They're just gonna phase out the whole program.
They're
Yeah.
changing, they're
But
not,
won't they have
they're
to-
they're
Working against
changing,
federal
they're
laws
phasing
now.
it out, yes, they're phasing it out as it stands, and they're doing tiers. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. Tier 1, normal, maybe slight. Tier 2, dyslexic. Tier 3, like serious
Right.
developmental issues. My son has Asperger's. He's very smart, and if any of you all know Aspies, and Bill Gates is an Aspie. Oh gosh, they're capable of wonderful things, but they're capable of awful things too. They think outside the box. In the classroom with Common Core, there's only a box. If you veer out, you are tamped back into it. He's either going to be a part of the group or he's not. And if he's not, they're going to have a special way of treating him.
They
Case
will
in
be
point,
warehoused.
her board. That's what's going to happen. And it sounds scary.
And if you want to encourage dropout rates and suicide rates, start doing that to kids every day when they go to school.
But I want to just point out real quick.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My husband teaches in Kentucky. He teaches high school chemistry, physics. Last year, he had a Chem 2 class with 25 kids in it. 22 of them were special needs. They had not had Chem 1. They hadn't even had introduction to chemistry.
Who hates your husband? Because that's how that happens.
Oh, it's just, and you have to teach the classes only as good as your slowest student.
Mhm.
And when he had 2 of them, they said they were, because I went to the class a couple times. He had no help. He's supposed to have assistants in there when he has special needs. No help. And it's his 3 students that had signed up for the class initially and were really brilliant kids. He ended up staying after school and working with every day just to keep them involved.
Can I recommend, and you all are talking about websites, I know you have questions. On YouTube, do you all have YouTube or access to YouTube?
Yes.
If you go on YouTube and you look up Jane Robbins, Common Core.
She's great.
She's got a 5-part series. Jane Robbins is an educator. She's been in it for years, but she can tell you in 5 shows or 5 programs, beginning to end. If you've got a few hours just between, when the kids are in bed or when you wake up early, you're doing your devotional, watch them. They'll help you.
But the call to action, don't comply. Don't be rude, don't be hateful, and in fact, show them, no, you can't do this because the statute is, and anytime they tell you, well, no, we've got to do this because, you wouldn't believe how quickly they shut up when you go, really? Could you show me the state code on that? Could you show me where that is? Because many of them will look you in the eye and lie to you and profess to be telling you something that they know is not true. And then when you go, really, show me where that is. What statute is that? What's the name of that bill? All of this, I'm going to back up. Questions? You had a question come before, and I'm so sorry.
Well, I obviously came to this meeting under a different impression. I'm a 37-year Tennessee teacher, and I'm now retired. I've been retired for 3 years, and most of my friends are still in the classroom. And I came to hear, why is Common Core being done to the teachers and the students like it is? And what can be done locally? Now, my view, I'm not in the classroom, but I'm always going to be in the classroom. I'm a proponent of education. like one of your former speakers. And what the teachers are asking to do, teaching is an art and it's a science. And if you take away the teacher's ability to use her personality to reach her students, I'm here for help locally. I'm not here for a national campaign or anything like that. My help, I want to help here in town. And if you have, any of you have students in your family or grandchildren or whatever, you know, my interest does not lie in Washington. My interest lies at central office, what's coming down to
And I think
okay?
truthfully though, honestly, that's the only way that constitutionally this gets solved. And I know we need to get out of here.
That's right.
But I can tell you, no, here's the thing. Locals have if we are a local control state, and by the way, they're opting out in Wisconsin, in Iowa, in New York. I would find it pretty hard to believe that New York is a local control state and Tennessee is not, but they are.
But we have Haslam.
Yeah.
Okay, but Haslam has nothing to do with that. That's a constitutional issue. Know who your local school board reps are. Know who your state legislators are and make sure they know you. When they try to talk to you about Asia, bring up Finland and bring up America's past about even when I was in school, we were the #1 educator in the world. So I think it only gets solved at the local level because history shows us that the further towards Washington we push anything, the worse the mess gets. So let your locals know and tell them you can opt out and tell them that nothing belongs in our classroom that's published by a corporation like Pearson. And I can get you guys forms where basically you say, I refuse to have any of my people in this database. I refuse to have my family's information out there, that kind of thing.
There are opt-out forms that
Yes.
you can get online. Michelle
I actually
Malkin.
have opt-out forms.
Michelle Malkin also has a website.
Do you guys have like a central, because I didn't bring paper and pen for notes, but like a way
Okay,
to.
guys, BJ and I are going to send out newsletters. If you have given me your email address on my clipboard, please do so if you have not, and we will keep you abreast.
And I have a web page that is in process of being totally gutted and rebuilt, so don't go. But I will give you my personal email. You've got my email.
Yes, and if you can send it to me, I will put it out to all the people who are
Okay,
here.
and it's juliewest08@gmail.
You'll have to do that in there.
And you know, this is not just a one-time meeting, this is something that we
Yes.
have to do from now on. This has to be a regular thing, a regular part of our lives. And we have to
And the
start
school board
educating.
needs to know that you're paying attention.
Yes.
And that's the,
Well, we do need to evacuate, and if you'll put your chairs in, I'll clean up the rest.
All right, hey, shoot me an email.
All right, I think
This
that's
was
it.
yours, but
Yes,
do you
but
want
you
this
can
back?
keep
Can I
it.
keep it? Okay.
James, just going on a stand there?
Yes, sir, please. If you can do that, that would be great.